done. Yes, Mr. Frodo. It's over now.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to the final word on this Hammer Films 20-film Blu-ray set. For those new, I make videos about things that I like. Usually films, but sometimes other things like TV shows, games, anything. But for this set of Hammer Films, I decided to make a video each week for each film in that set, whether I enjoyed it or not. So even if I didn't enjoy it, I'd still say a couple words about it. It has been a long 20 weeks, but before we dive in, if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing, as well as hitting that bell icon so you get a notification when I put up new content, which is usually once or twice a week, occasionally a couple more depending on what I come across. Also be sure to stick around to the end of the video, and be sure to share this video and this channel around after checking out my back catalog, because all that stuff really does help out the channel quite a bit. Now that that's out of the way, this has been insane. I can't even believe that I committed to doing 20 videos on 20 films in 20 weeks, none of which I'd even seen before. And only a handful of actors in this set were ones that I'd even seen before. You know, there's Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and Oliver Reed, I think, were, maybe the only ones that I'd actually even heard of before or seen anything that they'd done. And there were some weeks where, depending on my schedule and what was going on at the time, I admittedly really phoned in a couple of these videos, especially if it was ones like for a video for a movie that I really didn't enjoy. It'd be a very basic and short video, but I still wanted to at least put a couple words up there about it. But as insane as this has been, getting through this entire set, it's also been a great experience to kind of pace these things out, one a week, write some words about it, and put these little videos together. Some videos in the set stood out much more than others, meaning I either really enjoyed them or felt like they were a waste of time. Of course, there were some in the middle of all that were just kind of okay, but there's nothing special to write home about. But they weren't really bad, just unforgettable. But I would say that the most memorable one that I did not enjoy, which usually I don't try to focus on what I don't enjoy, but I think you can see from the video and its views, was for The Snorkel from 1958. I just couldn't get into it. It really didn't pull me in, and it was kind of a pain to even get through that film. However, the most memorable one which stuck out, that I actually really enjoyed, I'd have to say there's two. First one being Cash on Demand from 1961, starring Peter Cushing. It's about a bank heist, and is based on a play. It drew me in and had me just completely wrapped up in the story, almost to the point where I was going to be sweating like Cushing did while his character was under so much stress in this film. The other one is Never Take Candy from a Stranger from 1960, also known as Never Take Sweets from a Stranger, because this one was just gripping, it was shocking, and it was really sad as well. It actually really messed me up for that night. There were other notable ones in here, such as Revenge of Frankenstein and a handful of others kind of thrown in there, especially within the last few, we had two of these war dramas that were pretty interesting, though a little bit slow in some ways, but were great to check out. But I feel like out of this set of 20 films, I would definitely rewatch probably 10 of these, that I enjoyed them enough that I would definitely give them another watch someday. And, for $40, that's a pretty good price. That's comes out to $4 each. So that was totally worth it. But as far as the set in general, I'd say the only warnings I would have is that, so the artwork on it really leans into horror and thrillers a lot. It even has some stuff saying, we dare you to watch. But it was a mixed bag. Not all of them were horror or thriller. They actually had a lot of comedy thrown in there, some action adventure ones, the war dramas that I mentioned before, and some sci-fi kind of mixed into the set, which, initially, to be honest, was a bit disappointing because I just didn't look into what movies were in it. I just saw Hammer Films and decided to buy it thinking it was all going to be horror. It's that whole, don't judge a book by its cover. Probably shouldn't judge a Blu-ray by its cover as well. But yeah, it was still worth it. But coming away from this experience, there are a few things that I learned. First, there's a lot of decent cinema, which I feel like it's lost. I don't really hear much talk about it. And, they might not be perfect or huge blockbusters from that time, which is, I believe, from like 1958 to 1971. But there's a lot in there that was worth revisiting. I feel like sometimes they only focused on what were the biggest hits of those times, what really changed the industry and had a huge impact, when there are some that were just decent movies worth enjoying. They didn't need to be really huge. Second is that, as I've mentioned in a few of the videos, color. The way that they did color in these color films back then, which not all of them are color, some of them are black and white. The way that they did that color back then, it really popped out. And every time I was watching one in color, especially the first one, Revenge of Frankenstein, as well as The Gorgon, it just really stuck out and I thought it was great. Third, when it's based on a play, like when whatever movie it was is based on a play, such as Cash on Demand, I definitely got a lot more out of it. It's almost as if by doing the stage performances first over those years, however long it was until they decided to turn it into a film, they had a lot of time to make little rewrites, polish any rough edges, and really work out any problems before they committed it to film. If it was written solely for the film, or if they were trying to adapt it from a book that maybe was too long to fit into a film, I feel like that's where there were a lot of missteps in those stories. And finally, aside from this set, check out the oldies. Seriously, there are some gems out there. Even if you need a compass, a pickaxe, and a pair of night goggles to find them, there are a lot of older films worth checking out. I stole that line about the compass and everything from Steve Martin. Anyways, so what's going to be next now that this series is done? Now that these 20 weeks for these 20 films for 20 videos is done? Well, they do have more Hammer films. I was able to acquire more that were along the lines of horror and thriller. I think I got my hands on about 20 or 30 more of those. So I might sprinkle some of those in. And also got this one. The Classic Monsters by Universal. I got this years ago. I've seen a few of them in this set, and previously I'd seen a lot of these anyways. But there are some in this set that I actually either haven't seen or haven't seen them in so long that I have almost no memory of them. For instance, we used to have movies like this coming on in the afternoons with Dr. Paul Bearer, who was like a local horror host in the Tampa Bay area. And so I have some memories of films back then being shown, that he was presenting, as well as I have a very faded memory of going to 7-Eleven to buy a Slurpee so you could get 3D glasses to watch Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D. So it is going to be interesting to kind of revisit a couple of those. I don't think it'll be on any set schedule, whether it's from Hammer or Universal or some other sets that I have. But just that one day a week, I would like to bring up something that's quite old, that either I'm discovering for the first time or I'm kind of rediscovering after years of not having seen it. So while I might not be keeping up with that once a week for the retro ones, I will be adding them into that collection. But what I really also want to do is get back into more of the current horror that's been coming out, whether it's on Netflix or Shudder, kind of like what I was doing last summer. There were a lot of times where I put a retro 80s film, one that maybe was forgotten. I mean, we don't need to go back and look at things like Weird Science. Everybody knows about that, but maybe there's some older ones, like when I did a video for 3 O'Clock High, see if that one was any good. Or there were 2 of the River Phoenix films that he did as well that nobody talks about. But I liked finding those ones that either I'd forgotten about or nobody really talks about, seeing if they're still good, and if they are, making a video. So I like the idea of having a retro one that was maybe forgotten or nobody seems to talk about, some new horror from either Netflix or Shudder. I mean, last summer, I felt like every 2 weeks I was putting up a video for some new film that was on Shudder. And then maybe do one of these retro ones on another day if I can squeeze out 3 of those in a week. But yeah, there's also the other, I have another series that I'd started to do for a little while called Second Chance Cinema, where I watch a movie that I previously really didn't care for, give it a second chance, and if I enjoy it, make a video talking about what I thought about it the first time and what I feel about it going into it with kind of like a different mindset, or just taking a break and trying it another time. Same thing with those retro reviews, but to go with those other series, I want to do one on controversial films. Now, this isn't just going to be due to the content within the film, that would possibly be seen as insensitive these days, but possibly because of the star or stars of the film. Maybe there were some legal issues, or we found out some stuff about them outside of the industry that was really bad. To see if, due to that content or that star on these controversial films, can they still be enjoyed? Can you separate the art from the artist? Or is it not really going to work out? So I might try to put in a couple of those. But as Ambassador Endurin, father of Zur, and commander of the Starfighter fleet says, we shall see, Zur. We shall see. Anyways, I'm rambling on. Just wanted to kind of wrap this up. 20 films, 20 weeks, 20 videos. It was crazy. Just want to say thanks for coming along on this journey. Checking out any of these videos that I had. Thanks for all those who subscribed during this period and engaged with these videos through comments or helping to share them on social media over these past 20 weeks. And that's it for now. I will see you in the next one.